All right. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm trying a new presentation tool tonight, which is called Miro, and it's a bit more of an interactive tool, but it's easier to draw on. So I'd be interested in your feedback on that. And let me get that going. So yeah, tonight I want to talk about the basics of EMDR. And it's EMDR is eye movement reprocessing and desensitization. So that's a mouthful. So they shortened it up to EMDR. And um, tonight, I kind of want to cover what is EM, like EMDR, what is it, and the basic like concepts around it, and then how can that help you? How can that help people? And what do you use it for? And then maybe within our community, like what are some other uses for it? And then maybe we'll do a self-care exercise and see there may be some other things we can learn from it. So let's see. Let's admit Lacey. Hi, Lacey. Thanks for joining. Okay, so yep, we're talking about EMDR, eye movement reprocessing and desensitization, and it's a psychotherapy method that was founded by Francine Shapiro, and I think it was back in the 60s or 70s. And she's a therapist that she noticed that when she was out in the woods, that she felt better. Like when she was outside, like things didn't seem as bad. She felt relieved. She got some relief from being out in the woods. And I think we can all probably identify with some of that. And she wrote a very effective book, which I really like, Getting Past Your Past. Take control of your life with self-help techniques from EMDR therapy. I'll put a link in the notes after if you all are interested in some of the resources, but I just wanted to highlight some of those here. And what kind of makes sense is that when we're outside, just historically and in the before when we all lived in mud huts and we were out in nature, we were actually prey, right? So we had to keep our wits about us and scan the horizon for predators. We might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Even now, like when I'm jogging and uh, my brain kind of goes into a jog fog, but if there's a snake or something on the trail, it wakes me up and jolts me. And let's say that I'm even like driving to work and I'm driving with my subconscious, but there's an accident and the brakes go on and my brain wakes me up and brings me out of that so I can react. We'll talk a little bit more about reactions versus actions. But if you're scanning the horizon, then your eyes are moving back and forth across the horizon to see what's happening, and you're aware, so you have a heightened awareness. And what Francine Shapiro, began to relate that back to was rapid eye movement in sleep. So if you think about it, when you're sleeping and you have REM sleep, your eyes are flickering and also your brain is processing. So you might go to sleep worried and wake up feeling refreshed, or you might have found a solution to your worry. Or you may have had a problem and your brain solved that problem overnight. And that's what in EMDR they refer to as adaptive information processing, because you're not doing it consciously. Your subconscious is processing it for you. And EMDR takes advantage of that adaptive information processing method. So really, it's really gentle and just kind of lets your brain do the work. And it's a little bit meditative as well. And it amounts to, and we'll go through in more detail, but bilateral stimulation. So what that does is it ends up kind of synchronizing the hemispheres of the brain. So we'll do eye movements. Sometimes we do tapping, and it kind of depends on what works for you. I think research has shown that eye movements are the most effective, but I also find tapping to be effective. And also, if you're doing it for yourself, you probably don't want to be doing this. Tapping works a lot better. So talking about like what happens with trauma, and maybe you all are familiar with this model. And the way I like to talk about it is like your nervous system, it is your spinal cord, like takes in your senses. So your senses take in information. Your body takes in information in your central nervous system, and then that runs up to your like sensing brain. And so there's that sensing, and then there's the feeling. So you get a feeling, and then you think about it. And if you're traumatized, what happens is those negative feelings and that shock and the visuals, they get stuck down in your nervous system. They don't process effectively. And if you think about it, if you're young and your brain isn't fully developed and your prefrontal cortex is not quite all formed up yet, it's almost impossible to process trauma, big T trauma, with an integrated brain. Get stuck in that fight or flight spot in your nervous system. So EMDR is the process of integrating back that trauma that's stuck in your nervous system and using the adaptive information processing function of your brain to integrate those thoughts and feelings so that you're not triggered by them anymore. And this has a model of, hey, we're triggered, and then we act, and then we're triggered, we have fear, and then we think about that next, right? And it's just like that snake in the woods. We're triggered by the primordial fear of a predator, and then we jump, right? We don't have to think about it. Let's see, I got my little model here, but in the cognitive model, we think about things, and then we have a feeling, and then we have an action after that. So it's a little bit reversed. In the EMDR model, we're getting triggered, and I don't know if you all have had that experience, by past memories that are stuck in our nervous system. I know I have. So when you have a trigger, and it could be the snake, or it could be like you just have a smell or a sight or a taste that reminds you of a negative event in the past. It triggers that memory that comes up from your nervous system. And I don't know about you, but I have that sometimes, and it comes up from nowhere, and I don't know where it came from. And that's an area where you want to investigate. And sometimes you actually have positive things stuck in your nervous system, where if you think about one time I was at a seminar, and they brought in some desserts and some cookies, and it just so happened to be the same desserts and cookies that my grandmother used to serve from the same area in Long Island. So it triggered like all those positive memories, and that can happen in a negative way too, and often does. And so when you have that event or stimulus or trigger, it throws you kind of like it has the potential to throw you out of your window of tolerance. And that means that you might be hyper aroused, and you might have had the experience of someone snapping at you, or you snapping at somebody else for something that didn't seem to, like, it didn't mean anything. You just said like apples, and then they snapped. That's that memory coming up from the nervous system and snapping you into hyperarousal. And you can also have hypoarousal, so feeling too little, so you can go dead. And that model, or that idea of the trauma response, is the 4 Fs. So fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So the freeze and fawn response, I believe, would be like a hypo or a low response, and then the fight or flight, of course, would be the high trauma responses. And one of the best books I found on that is Pete Walker's book, Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving. And there's most of the book is available on his website, but it's a very nice hard copy. And when I first started my internship in counseling, my supervisor said, we use this book. And I grabbed the book and I said, "You mean this one with all my tags in it and dog ears?" So we were on the same page. So that was kind of fun. Um, okay. So are you all good so far? Are you with me? Give me the metaphorical thumbs up. Following. All right. Well, fantastic. So the EMDR process. Let's kind of go back to the simple explanation that Francine Shapiro offers. When something bad happens, it gets locked in the nervous system with the original pictures, sounds, thoughts, and feelings. And it's locked in there. It continues to be triggered whenever the reminder comes up. And it can be really uncomfortable with a lot of negative emotions, fear, helplessness that we can't control. Anger is another thing that comes up a lot. And they're really connected to the old experience, not to what's happening right now. And the eye movements of EMDR kind of unlock that nervous system, let your brain process the experience. And yeah, that we think that that's what's happening during sleep. And you really don't have to do anything other than participate in the process and kind of let it come to you. So when we do EMDR, we do like a series of, again, eye movements or tapping, and we do some scaling questions, and we ask like, how disturbing is that to you now on a scale of 1 to 10? But we might also do some resource building beforehand. And there's a couple reasons why we do resource building. One is to give people the understanding that they actually have some tools that they can use to control their nervous system. And if they practice using those tools, they get better and better at it. And they will then have a resource to take themselves out of that fight or flight, fawn or freeze mode into the putting the thinking before the stimulus and response and bringing like a cool calmness to their nervous system. So we call that resources building. And the one thing we do is kind of the safe place exercise. Is there anybody who would be willing to do the safe place exercise? Okay. Well, that being said, I will do it for us. Okay. I'll do a little demonstration. So where am I? There I am. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to just take a big deep breath. Just filling up your lungs all the way and letting it out. And then you want to imagine a place where you feel safe and comfortable and maybe even loved, but certainly safe and comfortable. And some people go to the beach, some people go under the covers in front of the fireplace. Some people go to grandma's kitchen. Some people go to any number of places. So then we ask you to go to that place and describe exactly what you see and what you hear and what you smell and what you taste. What are your senses telling you? And absorb yourself in the scene. And I like to go to the beach myself. So we go to the beach and describe what you see. So I see the horizon and the waves breaking in the wind. I can feel the wind on my face and the sun on my face. It's warm. And I'm there with my family and I'm in my 0G chair. I might get up and throw the stick to my dog and the dog gets wet and the sand is wet and it feels really comfortable and relaxing, and you can smell the air, and the sun might be going down towards the end of the day and just feeling comfortable and relaxed. I'll stay in that place for a minute. Okay. And then we ask you to come back to the session, and we're going to tap that in on the shoulders just briefly. Take a deep breath. Okay. And we're just going to check in and see how you feel. And I can tell you, I feel pretty good. It's pretty nice to be able to take a little mini vacation like that. And then what we'll do is we will trigger that with, we'll create a mildly negative experience and kind of ask you where you feel that in your body. That might be like being cut off in traffic, or doing somebody doesn't return your phone call or something like that, and you just want to like bring up that feeling, and then we just kind of wipe that clean and go back to our comfortable place. So go back to the beach, and then we enhance that just by asking the questions about going to the beach and those feelings and thoughts and being there. We kind of continue with your deep breath. Okay, and then the idea is that we are able to make that transition. So we ask the person, how did you feel? Like, were you able to make that transition? And if so, great. If not, then why not? And what did you feel in your body? Like, what did you feel physically as you made that transition, but out of the agitation and into the calmness? And then we just kind of encourage people that they can use that as a way to regulate their nervous system every day or on a daily basis. They just practice that. It just takes about a minute. Begin to build that pathway, and when you sense the agitation, you're able to kind of relax into it and be more present. And so that is the safe place exercise. So next, I was thinking that we might do an exercise, but I do need a volunteer because I can't make it up. So if anybody wants to, then we can. Otherwise, we can back off a little bit.
I'll volunteer.
Abbie, you're the best.
Oh, thank you. Do you need my camera on?
It would help, but as long as if you're
Okay.
comfortable with it.
Well, I don't care.
Okay. Nice to see
you. Well, I'm just sitting on my sofa, so
you. You're doing great.
with a blanket.
Perfect. That's a good place to be if we're going to work on some stuff.
All right.
So what we'd want to do is like pick out something that's like mildly disturbing, like not on a scale of 0 to 10, something that's like a 6 or less even, right? Something that's mildly disturbing. And it could actually be like anxiety about a future event. It could be something that's in the present that's bugging you. Or, yeah.
I just got into a big argument with my daughter. Actually, it was yesterday, but I'm still, it's still residual. So.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a big one, but we could try it.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
It
it's
depends
not.
on how you're doing with it. Yeah.
I processed most of it. I'm just.
Okay.
So it feels a lot less than it did yesterday. It was big.
Okay. All right. So as long as you're like not above like a 6, then we can talk about it. Okay. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about like what happened and what you were thinking and feeling.
just she was being really negative, and everything I said to her, she was taking wrong, and it stemmed from an argument about a prom dress, the her prom dress that I bought a couple days ago. So, um, and I didn't know why, like, but then she says that every time that she basically she's doing the whole thing where she's angry with me because of whatever reason, but then she won't talk to me for days, and then she accuses me of being mean because I don't her energy is so off. I don't know how else to act around her. It's not that I'm being mean, it's just that I'm not exactly being pleasant because she's just being a grouch.
Yes.
So,
Yes. So with the you tried to do something nice for her. You got the prom dress. You were trying to help her get everything arranged. She wasn't having any of it. And I could imagine that that might make you feel like not valued, maybe a little like not connected to her. Um, maybe a little bit like what the heck is this all about? Maybe a little angry about it.
yeah, like, she's unappreciative, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you feel like not appreciated or not valued.
Mhm.
Was there any other like feelings coming up or thoughts about that event?
No, that's mostly it. That's the root of it right there.
So not appreciated, not valued, um, maybe taken for granted, something like that.
Or taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, was there like a negative message that you were giving yourself about yourself in that situation?
It's I guess so, it because to me, it feels like I get sucked back in, she's nice when she wants something. So then it's like I continue to let this happen. That's my negative message to myself is that I allow the cycle to repeat itself.
So, so I allowed this to happen. I allow this to repeat. Oh, I'm kind of a
Mhm.
sucker, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Um,
Yes.
um, and how is it possible not to be a sucker for your children? I just don't know, but yes, it still probably feels that way, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So do you have like an image of your mind of that event or a set of words that represent the event that you can kind of
Um,
anchor on?
am I supposed to describe it or
No, you don't have to just
okay.
have an
Yeah.
image. Yeah. Okay. And then when you think about that thing, like where does it come up in your body? Like where's the you feel any tension or what do you feel?
Yeah. In my like right here in my solar plexus area.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so let's leave that for a
Yeah, it
second.
really does.
And let me ask you, like, what would you rather in that situation? Like, what would you rather feel and have happen?
I don't wanna I guess I don't wanna feel defensive, so the opposite of defensive but not the opposite of that 'cause I don't wanna be offensive either, I just, um, I wanna be in control, I guess.
So you want to
Not
be
of
in control?
her, but I mean, I don't want to be reactive.
Okay. So you want to be, let's see, like open to the situation and able to meet her wherever she is, maybe connected. You'd rather be
Yeah,
connected?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure that you would rather like feel loved in that situation as opposed to like pushed away. So
definitely.
like accepted or something.
No, maybe more respected.
Respected. Okay. So so what else is in there though? So feeling connected, feeling respected, feeling valued.
Mhm.
Is it loved or
I I don't know. I just feel like she's manipulative, so I don't know. I don't I don't know how to I don't know,
so maybe it's
explain that further.
like having the skills and the self awareness and the composure to meet that situation.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
so if everything was to go like perfect and you were to be as you want to be and you were to feel like you wanted to feel, what would that look like? What would represent that?
Um, in the scenario, like, as far as her and I mean, it would look like we could have an actual conversation where it's not accusatory and
Okay.
yeah, I don't
So
know.
let's frame that into a positive statement
Okay. Um,
because you're saying what you don't want, but we want to say what we do want, which is harder.
yeah, it really is.
That's how-
I know trying to not use negatives is really, really hard because I know the subconscious doesn't work too well with them. But so just positive, open communication.
okay. Um, so maybe if you went back to that scene in your head and you played it the way that you would want it to go and you had the feeling of success in that interaction, what would that look like? What would that feel like?
Um, okay. Well, so let me explain the situation a little bit. I paid for her prom dress, but then she asked her grandma to pay for it, and her grandmother sent her the money, and she was going to pay me back because I just spent $700 on her homecoming dress. So then she decided she didn't have to pay me back because I didn't. She's like, "Oh, you can take the money out of my account," and I said, "Okay," but I hadn't yet. And then she went shopping, and then she decided that because I didn't take the money out of her account, she thought that meant that I wasn't going to.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was like, I just felt like she should just pay me though, you know? Anyway, so it was a huge argument about it. So I forgot what your question is again, but
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
situation, I guess it would have been instead of like, you said I wasn't gonna, that you weren't taking the money, blah, blah, blah. Like, instead of acting that way, she would have just said, hey, I didn't understand what you said. I thought that meant whatever. That would have been the right way for her to have handled it. But she's already accusing me, so then
You're defensive, yeah.
I meet her where she is. Yeah.
Yeah. And um so you'd prefer like non-confrontational communication, like some and to
Yeah.
know, right? And then be able to tell her and to talk with her about that without it being escalated
Um,
into the up there fight or
pettiness.
flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about it, like maybe there's some event in the past that reminds you of. I don't know, right? Like if you kind of float back to your past,
It's a cycle.
it's
Yeah.
all in there. But when was like the first time that you experienced or recognized that cycle? Does it remind you of anything?
Um, I not a particular time. It's just the way that her and I interact. I guess that I don't know. At times, it just does. It seems to be. I can't think of the first time now.
So it's an
It's
interaction.
not always this way. It's not
Yeah.
always this way. It's just it is a pattern though. It feels like.
Okay. And like, let's go back to the positive side of that. Like, how do you want to show up or be there in that situation? Like, what would that look like if it all went well? What would you be saying about yourself? And it might be something like, I'm confident, I'm self-aware, I bring my best to the situation, and I show love no matter what happens. Something like
That's
that, right?
that's exactly it, is that if I handled myself correctly, I would, um, be able to show love in a situation instead of reacting and then being being ugly too. So,
Okay. So let's boil that down a little bit so that you can have a statement that we can use.
okay, um, I would respond with love, I guess.
Okay. So I I act in love
Mhm.
no matter the circumstances.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. So we're going to use that. So if you acted in love, like, can you feel that? Can you?
Yeah.
Okay. And like, how true is that right now? Thinking about that original incident on a scale of 1 to 7, where one's false and 7 is completely true, that I act in love no matter the circumstances.
2?
Okay. All right. Okay. That's good. And then let's go back to the negative image
Okay.
and um, some of those statements like, I allow this to happen, and those things that feel you have the negative image, that feeling in your body and your solar plexus. Just want you to bring that up, and then we're going to process that. Okay. Are you ready?
Mhm.
All right. Follow my fingers. Okay, take two big, deep breaths. Fill up your lungs. Let it go. Okay. Many thoughts or images come up for you?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I'm kinda relaxed after that, so
Okay,
okay.
that's good. So, how disturbing is that original image to you on that scale of 0 to 10?
It's that wasn't yeah, I don't it's like a 0, and I know that's not supposed to be that fast usually, but that really maybe that was what was
Okay, and then do a little body scan and tell me what you notice.
okay. Well, I don't feel blocked there anymore. I don't feel anything in my solar plexus, so I feel good.
Okay. And then how true is it that I act in love no matter what the circumstances on that scale of 1 to 7? 1 is false, 7 is completely true.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to
Like,
wrestle
this is
over it.
moving forward?
No, and how do you feel about yourself right now, right?
Oh, right now?
Yeah, like not reliving your situation, just capable are you of acting in love no matter what the circumstances?
4.
Okay. All right, let's go with that. You ready?
Yep.
Follow my fingers. Okay, 2 big deep breaths. Fill up your lungs and flush it out. Just let it go. Okay, any random thoughts or images coming up for you?
No.
Okay. Still at a 0 on the original image?
Yep.
Okay. Little body scan for me. Tell me what you feel.
I just feel relaxed. So
Okay. And then how true is it that I act in love no matter what the circumstances on that scale of 1 to 7?
I think it's a 7 because I feel pretty. That's how I'd react right now. So in the moment, yes.
Okay. All right. I want you to go with that. Ready?
Okay.
Follow my fingers.
Hmm.
Okay. 2 deep breaths now. Okay. And just stay there. Tell me where you feel that feeling of love. What does that feel like?
I feel it in my chest, and it just feels like a white glowing light to me.
Okay. I just want you to focus on that white glowing light, that feeling of love in your chest, and then see if you can grow that and expand it. See if you can fill up your body with that. And if you can fill up your body with that white glowing love, okay, can you fill up the room that you're in? If you just make that white glowing love as big as possible, could you fill up the world with it? Could you fill up the universe with the white glowing love? Would that be possible? And I just want you to now gather that up. It's yours, the white glowing love, and bring it back down to your body, to your heart, and really feel it. And just take a big deep breath. And when you're ready, come back to us. Okay.
That was awesome. I could totally picture all of that. So
All right. Just stay with me for a second. Follow my
okay,
fingers, okay?
okay.
Okay, take one big deep breath. Okay. How you doing?
I'm great.
Okay. So that's the
I
general
needed this
idea.
yesterday.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate you like volunteering and sharing with me. And it's so nice to like enter the space with you and just be there and witness the brief transformation. It's happened so fast for you. And you can imagine that, people are suffering from trauma or, um, really, really difficult events or environments, and they're at an 11, that it takes time to bring people for the brain to process those emotions and feelings more
Oh
effectively,
yeah.
and I found that like people who are more open and not so tight, right? They process a lot faster than people who are tight with it, right? When people are tight, it's harder. It takes a little more time to build trust, and they sometimes people, they just grip onto that feeling, and they're so used to it, and they don't want to let it go sometimes. Um, it might take a little bit longer, but in general, it's a really gentle process, and uh, flows really well. So
Yeah, it does. I feel like I'm emanating white light right now.
so the thing is, your brain will like continue to process for some time, and you don't have to do anything. Like you might have some, your dreams might be impacted this week. It might be a little bit different. And that's important for this group, right?
Hooray.
And we had talked about previously, like if you're, when you wake up and you want to go back to the dream space, then you can do some taps on your shoulders, and that synchronizes the hemispheres of your brain. And a lot of times you go like right back into the dream space. So working in this way is kind of like working in that conscious dream space between sleep and awakeness. We try to enter that and let the brain do its work. And you can feel like that disconnecting of the physical stimulus, that tension in your body can drain out so that it's no longer associated with the event and the stimulus. And that's the idea, to kind of disconnect those things and let your brain process that so that you can be acting in love in any situation. Um,
Okay.
so do you have any questions or feedback?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But, well, feedback was just like, no, I really appreciate it actually. You like, because yesterday was, yeah, when it all happened, but I mean, I get a lot of my frustrations and stuff out at the gym, so that's the nice thing, I'm able to like it helps me to process a lot of my anger or, feelings, but it's not a complete one and done process, it's not always. So,
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said for kickboxing, but it doesn't do everything.
yeah, exactly.
um, okay. Does anybody else have any like questions or comments or feedback?
How do you have to use, like, can I use this method by myself or do I need a practitioner to assist with it?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is like it would help to go through a couple rounds with a practitioner, and then like I do use it myself, and I would say that kind of depending on like how upsetting the situation is, you don't really want to enter like real dangerous territory without someone there to support you, is what I would say, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if it was something small, under a 6,
Hmm. Yeah.
try to do it yourself, but it'd be best to participate with a practitioner a few times beforehand.
I think so, just to kind of learn the program. And then also you can use that safe, calm place exercise to, um, that helps. And when you come and you do that yourself, I would just add like 5 seconds of tapping and then a big deep breath. And then you can kind of work that new pathway and use that on an as needed basis. And then you can uh, process more difficult things with a guide.
And if I wanted to process more difficult things, and what if I've like shoved them down? I'm definitely one of those like hypo reactive freeze fawn.
Yep.
So if I don't even know what I need,
Hmm.
would a facilitator be able to help bring those to the surface?
Yeah, I mean, you have to work with a person that you trust, and then uh, typically, well, sometimes it takes some time, Lacey, right, to figure these things out when you build a
Yeah.
relationship and talk through. But when we do that float back exercise, what happens is you can just relax, and then when you float back in your memory and you have that anchor of the feeling in your body, a lot of times you you remember, if not the first time, but a time when that thing triggered and you got either upset or you froze. And
Hmm.
the earlier we go back and the more we try to work with like the earliest possible one that's the most upsetting, because a lot of times if you clear that, then the other ones just kind of naturally clear off. And
Okay.
in a treatment plan, we would try to work with the most upsetting thing first, and then work our way down the scale.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hope that answered your question.
It did.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
How
Well, mhm,
I do have one more question.
yeah.
What is the wording? Sorry, trying to think of what word I want to choose. Doing the EMDR, how often do you need to go back for a tune-up? Or is it kind of like if you work through a really traumatic situation, I imagine you'd have to go through it, a handful of times to totally clear it out? Or is it pretty good, like, 2 or 3 times? Because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna need, like, I don't know. I have no idea. 12 sessions for this one thing.
Well, that's a really good question. And I can't answer it exactly because each person is individual and they have their own experience. And each therapist is individual and they have their own skill level, and really it's the relationship between the client and the therapist that make things go faster. Um, today we went very fast, right?
Yeah.
But and I've seen that before, but I've also seen where things we work down from 10 to 8 or 10 to 6, and then we put it on pause, and then we work down from 6 to 4, and then we put that on pause because we run out of time, and then we get down over the course of some period of time, a couple weeks, to a 1, and we don't want to give that up, and sometimes that's okay, and sometimes we want to go ahead and get underneath of what is underneath that 1. And what happens as as you process things is we're clearing out the memories, and we like to think of them as channels. So you clear this channel, clear the channel, clear the channel, and then sometimes other connected memories in the network will come up and lead to other things, and you're like, oh, now I remember why. Now this leads me to this other channel, and then we just keep clearing those things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it may be that you bring yourself to the window of tolerance, and you're sitting at the top or the bottom, and then some other memory comes in, and we just try to work our way again from the most disturbing to down that chain of 10 to 0 for each traumatic memory. Or we can even do things in the future that you have anxiety about, like I'm afraid to go do public speaking, or I'm afraid to go to the DMV, or whatever it is, whatever the situation is, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lacey. All right. I think I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you so much for joining. That was great.